On June 11th of 2001, Rebecca and Max were at the Spreckles mansion when Max was playing upstairs and Rebecca was in a different area of the house. But all of a sudden, Max somehow managed to fall off of their stairs balcony from the second floor all the way to the floor of the mansion. Since Rebecca was in a different room of the house when the accident happened, she didn't actually see Max fall herself. She just heard the sound and came running out. Max was taken to the hospital, and unfortunately, he remained in critical condition until he passed away in the hospital on July 16th of 2011. But that is not it for this story. This gets even weirder and even sketchier. Today we are talking about Rebecca Zahau. She was born on March 15th, 1979 in Burma, and her family was actually forced to leave their homeland. So she came to San Diego, California, and worked as an ophthalmology technician. And one day at work, she met a man named Jonah Shacknai. He came into the office and she was instantly interested in him, and likewise for him, the two of them hit it off and they ended up in a relationship. Jonah actually had 3 kids from 2 previous marriages, the youngest being a 6-year-old boy named Max. And Rebecca didn't have any children of her own, so she was so happy when she found out he had kids, and she loved little Max. Dina Shacknai, who is Jonah Shacknai's ex-wife and mother of Max, did not like this, had a little bit of jealousy that another woman was in Max's life so much. So while Max was in the hospital, on the night of Wednesday, July 13th, 2011, only 2 people were at the house, Adam and Rebecca. So Jonah's brother, Adam Shacknai, decided to come in on July 13th, and he was just there to, give support and help the family more. The next morning, Adam came out of the guest room and walked into a terrible sight. If Rebecca really did kill herself, this was a very strange way of doing it, and let me tell you why. Rebecca's feet and her hands were completely tied up behind her in pretty intricate knots. Another strange thing about this is that if Rebecca did kill herself, which people assume she killed herself out of grief or guilt over Max was still alive at this point. He was still alive. He could have survived. They didn't know at that point. It's odd to kill yourself before he's even passed away if you were going to do that, During this time, Jonah was at the hospital with his son. Remember, at this point, he's still alive. He was in critical condition though. So obviously the parents are gonna be there pretty much the whole time that he's in there. Wouldn't she have wanted to be there to support Jonah and, fight for Max? So a couple days after Rebecca passed away, Max also passed away. So this was a terribly difficult time for Jonah. Since this was 2 odd deaths in the same house, days from each other, they launched an investigation. Now, Rebecca's room also has some different aspects to it that make people suspicious as to whether or not this was really a suicide. First of all, on the balcony, investigators found her footprints as well as a man's boot print. There were also 2 knives on the ground. And then on the shelf in her room, there was a book called Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft. And in the book, there's a page that talks about a ritual and shows a drawing of a naked woman with a rope tying her hands together behind her back. Also specifically says to use red rope. But the sketchiest thing of all, a message had been painted in black paint on the back of her door. Once they launched an investigation into the case, a neighbor came forward and said they heard several loud screams on the night. Also, an eyewitness came forward to police. This witness said that they saw a person going into the house that resembled Dina Shacknai, which is Jonah's ex-wife, who kind of did not like Rebecca spending so much time with her son. But actually, investigators immediately turned their attention to Adam Shacknai, Jonah Shacknai's brother. Well, obviously, this is because he was the only person with Rebecca that night, the only person that they knew of being there. But Adam's family describes him as a very nice guy, well-liked around the community. They said that he was a really good person who could never commit a crime like this. Adam worked with boats for a living. He would know how to do really intense knots, and the knots that were tied on Rebecca were pretty intricate knots to do. So on September 2nd, 2011, 7 weeks after the deaths of Max and Rebecca, Sheriff Bill Gore of the Sheriff's Department called for a press conference to announce the department had finally come to a conclusion about the 2 deaths. They said that the autopsy, fingerprints, DNA were all not showing any sign that Rebecca was attacked in any way before she died. They also said that the fingerprints that were found on the knife, on the balcony, on the door, on the bedpost were all Rebecca's. The DNA on the ropes was also only Rebecca's. Investigators also said that they chose to disregard the witness statement about someone coming into the house late at night and the screams coming from the house. They said that the boot mark on the patio was an accidental footprint from one of the investigators or police. So that was it. that was their conclusion. Case closed. Her family said, we're not done. Rebecca's family decided to make the very heart-wrenching decision to disturb the resting place of Rebecca and exhume her body, which basically means to dig her up. And they did this so that they could get a second autopsy done on her. So Rebecca's family asked them to reopen the case, but the request was rejected without comment. So fast forward to recently, 7 years later in 2018, ABC actually hired a private investigator to take a second look at things, and he found several things that did not add up from the original report. First, the report said that Rebecca's fingerprints were on the scene. However, how is this possible when Adam claimed to have cut her down from the balcony and then did mouth-to-mouth CPR on her? How would his DNA be nowhere on her body? But they claimed that his DNA was not found anywhere on her body or on her. He also, like most of us, think it's very odd that Rebecca tied her hands behind her back. Since in the original report they said that anyone could tie this type of knot, decided to get in contact with a rope tying expert. So maybe Rebecca really did know how to tie the knot. Jonah did say that she would often go boating with him and she had tied up the boat many times. This is not the way that anyone would be tying up a boat. And he also started questioning the way she fell off of the balcony. He said that he thinks it's possible that someone could have thrown her body off the balcony without even stepping on the balcony, which would explain why there was no other fingerprints or footprints. And at the end of his investigation, he came to the conclusion that this may not be suicide, but he did not have enough evidence to prove there was foul play involved. And this is when Rebecca's family and Keith Greer decided to file a lawsuit. Filed a wrongful death suit for the family, claiming that Dina, her sister Nina, and Adam worked together to kill Rebecca. Of course, Dina completely denies this. And after further investigation, they were able to determine that it wasn't even possible for Dina to have been involved because she was seen on camera leaving the hospital because her son was in there at the same time that Rebecca was killed. So she just could not have done this. Once their lawyer realized this, he solely targeted Adam. But Adam himself stated that he does occasionally work with knots, but they don't do a lot of knot tying because he works on a river. What about the message on the door? When you compare the handwriting samples, they do look more like Adam's than they do Rebecca's. And the San Diego Sheriff Department never, ever did a handwriting test on that door. Recently, April 4th, 2018, Rebecca's family had their chance to prove that she was murdered in a civil case. They came to the conclusion that Adam Shacknai was responsible for the death of Rebecca Zahau, and he must pay her family $5 million. But it's not what Rebecca's family is looking for. They're not after money. They want justice for their family member. But Rebecca's sister Mary, who's been very involved in this case, still believes that it was Adam to this day, and she's not gonna stop fighting until she gets justice for her sister. She's holding out hope that one day Adam, who is now 54, will be criminally charged in the case. But she also said that she wants to forgive Adam because that's what Rebecca would have done. I don't think this case is over. I don't think the coverage of it is over because it's such an unsatisfying conclusion. It's so frustrating. I mean, it's hard to say. Rebecca could have killed herself. They definitely couldn't prove that she couldn't have done it. But it doesn't seem very likely. It doesn't seem like a very common way to kill yourself. It's just all very odd. The timing of it is odd. I have so many questions. Such a frustrating one. I feel so sorry for everyone who is grieving Rebecca and Max. It's a terrible situation. My heart goes out to everyone involved on both sides. And that's it for me today, guys. I will see you in my next video. Bye.